Hello everyone and welcome to the Data for Food 2030 podcast. In this podcast series, we focus on the project's 9 case studies, which are real-life examples that aim to map and improve the data economy for food systems. In today's episode, we spotlight the case study Mapping and Valorizing Food Loss and Waste Data in the Amsterdam Metropolitan Area to Improve the Circular Economy, or else AMAFLOW for short. For this reason, I'm very happy to welcome Xuezhen Guo from the project partner Wageningen University Research. Xuezhen is a researcher on data science informatics and supply chain design, and together we will discuss everything about the AMAFLOW case study. Xuezhen, welcome and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you also.
So, can you give us an overview to start our discussion of the AMAFLOW case study?
Yeah, AMAFLOW case study is one of the 9 user case of the Data for Food 2013 European project, and our user case focuses on the last stage of the food supply chain, basically the food waste part. How can we use data to better recollect and reuse the food waste to improve the circular economy in the metropolitan area of Amsterdam is the primary problem we want to address in this project. So this is a 3-year user case covering a relatively long period. So we want to understand the food waste development within this time period in Amsterdam area.
And what sparked the idea for this case study?
Yeah, the idea is sparked by the ambition of Amsterdam Metropolitan Area. They want to become the fully circular city in 2015 already. 50, I mean. To realize that, food system circularity is a very important topic, and the municipality really want to encourage business and also citizen to together realize this goal. So that's actually gives us the basis for developing this user case in this project.
And food loss and waste is always a very important issue to tackle. So this is what you're tackling in this case study, from what I understand.
Indeed, yeah.
Great. And what primary objectives did you set for improving the food loss and waste monitoring system and for improving the circular economy, as you mentioned before?
Yeah, the primary objective is to fill the data gap of the food loss waste mapping in Amsterdam Metropolitan Area. So for food loss waste, the data is not that rich because normal waste stream has been already registered in the national database. But how can we identify the food waste flow out of the general waste flow is a very important question. Therefore, the first goal of our project is better mapping the food loss waste stream using the national waste data to create a better food map for Amsterdam Metropolitan Area related to the waste of food. Then after that, after we have a good map, we can base on this food waste map to create some impact map. For example, what's the nutrient value of this food loss waste, and what is the greenhouse gas emission associated with this food loss waste, and also most interestingly, what is the biodiversity footprint associated with the food loss waste. All these impact parameter related to sustainability and can give us an overall idea about how circularity can help improve the sustainability of the food system in Amsterdam area.
And to achieve all these goals, are you employing any specific key activities in this case study?
Yes, as we already mentioned, first of all, we have to analyze the food waste stream and identify the the real food waste flow out of a general waste flow, and that requires the analysis of the data, and then also incorporate the expert knowledge to help this identification, because only purely based on the data is not possible, because the data itself has some gap. This key activity is actually to combine the data insight with expert knowledge. Only by integrating these two, we can really develop a good map for food waste distribution in Amsterdam area. And also one key activity is to connect with the company, especially the company who already have the data, like our partner GeoFlux. They already have a good map for general food waste. And the activity we have done is we sit together and we using some session to identify the key flow and do the zoom in analysis and to find if that's really food waste related. So basically that's the current activity we are doing now, and the follow-up activity, of course, including the stakeholder engagement. So not only from a scientific point of view, if the map are valid, we still want to get the idea from the stakeholder to see if that's mapping really in line with their expectation. Because as I mentioned, only purely based on data, it's not possible to create a good map. We need to incorporate expert knowledge and stakeholders overview.
Thank you very much for your answer. And I understand that you have a concrete methodology and some very well outlined key activities to achieve all these goals. And now I would like to ask you, how will the outcomes of this case study benefit stakeholders within the food system, which is a very important aspect of the project?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Basically, we distinguish our end user or stakeholder into two categories. The first category is a policy maker, because the food loss waste related problem has a very large public implication. Therefore, the first benefits we can deliver is to provide the decision maker or policy maker the data to make food waste informed policy making in the municipality of Amsterdam. So they can use our data to find the hotspot stream, and then accordingly make the policy to reduce that stream or to valorize that stream to create a value for the city of Amsterdam. So that's for the public policy maker. The second group, the stakeholder, is the waste collection company, also the waste valorization company. So our goal is to have a good mapping of the hotspot flows of the food loss waste in that region to provide data-driven evidence for those businesses to support their daily business operation. For example, where they should put the consolidation point to collect this waste, and how should they reuse this food waste in a most cost-effective way using permitting technology. So all this kind of data-driven supporting can benefit the business a lot for their operation.
So you're targeting a wide range of stakeholders, including policymakers and citizens, which covers mostly all stakeholders of the Amsterdam Metropolitan Area. Thank you very much for your answer. And of course, each stakeholder group has different benefits, as you mentioned earlier. And now I would like to ask you if you could share with us some preliminary results of the case study, if you have seen any so far.
Yeah, we have already analyzed the general waste flow registered in the national data platform, waste data platform. And based on this general flow, we use AI-based approach and combined with expert knowledge. We managed to create the first draft mapping of the food loss waste in Amsterdam Metropolitan Area. However, we observe the data gap for just using the national waste registration database, because there are a lot of streams are still the description of those streams are not very clear. Therefore, we trying to also use the high-level national statistics, food-related statistics, to do some top-down calculation to verify our bottom-up approach, because using the waste stream is kind of a bottom-up approach. There, we use every individual waste flow to generate the overall figure. We thought there is some data gap because distribution weights are not in line with what we expected. And therefore, we want to use now the top-down approach to based on the total volume of food consumption to calculate the waste. And then we're trying to match these two numbers. That's current activity we are doing now. Besides that, we also started to develop a logistic model based on the high potential hotspots flow we identified to provide some preliminary information about which flow is highly promising for valorization purpose, and which logistic model we should consider, and which technology we should consider. So we already started this part as well.
And do you expect any long-term benefits for ensuring a sustainable and circular food system through the case study AMAFLOW?
Indeed. We would like to not only provide the short-term data analysis-based insight for the Amsterdam Metropolitan Area. We also want to make our tool and approach generic. So basically provide a new approach for the public policymaker or for food company to give them a reliable decision support tool to make a decision based on similar data analysis. So basically, the idea is not only Amsterdam can use our methodology. Actually, all the similar municipality with similar data structure, with similar management system can use our methodology as well. So we really see our impact. The impact of our study is long-term, is methodological, will provide much broader implication than just focus on Amsterdam Metropolitan Area.
So you will expand also your results to other municipalities, which is also something very important.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
At least this is our intention. Of course, in the project, the primary focus will be still Amsterdam Metropolitan Area, but the methodology, we're trying to make it generic, can be applied in other cities and other contexts.
So as to have more applications, not only in the Amsterdam Metropolitan Area. Now I would like to ask you, how does AMAFLOW use data to track and reduce food loss and waste in Amsterdam Metropolitan Area? I mean, you have answered this question a little bit before, but I would like us to focus a little bit more on this.
Yeah. So basically, the general challenge of this food loss waste mapping is to identify the food-related flow from millions of general flows, where those flows have some useful information in their description field. Every flow needs a description. And also, every flow has some generation entity. So basically, based on this kind of information, we can develop an AI-based prediction model to predict if this flow is food-related and which type of food is related. So this one approach we use, basically leverage AI. Another approach is incorporate expert knowledge, because purely based on the AI intelligence to learn from data is not enough. So we trying to utilize a lot of information we gathered from a previous project in Wageningen to create some waste profile for certain waste flow based on, again, the entity of the food waste generator and also the chain stage it's belonging to. So using this kind of combined approach based on both data and domain knowledge, we're trying to develop a predictive model that can give us the best prediction about the status of the flow, if it's food related and what type of food is related, even the purity of the food, purity of this food waste flow.
So you're using both technology and previous research as a method to approach this issue. And thank you. And how can better data mapping support circular bioeconomy initiatives and create new opportunities for food waste valorization?
Yeah, the opportunity is again on at two levels. On the first city level, policy level, it can help the decision maker and the city manager make better science-valid targeted policy to, for example, reduce certain food waste flow or reuse certain waste flow on the city level. It also creates value for the business because business, they want, especially for the food waste valorization company, the stability of their business rely heavily on the stability of the food waste supply. So our data can provide them the insights about where the food waste existing and how often this food waste can be generated. So based on this kind of information, they can better organize their food supply chain, waste supply chain, to maintain their business and make their business more stable. And that's a prerequisite for any viable business to exist, right? So I think in this sense, that our data can provide a high value to this business.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like us to focus on one more question before we finish our discussion for today. How do you envision this case study contributing to the overall goals of the project, Data for Food 2030?
Yeah, as one of the user cases to prove a data economy can be realized in the food system or food supply chain, I think our user case contributes a lot for the last stage of the food supply chain. So basically, the idea is using the data accumulated for the food waste in the city like Amsterdam, we can better utilize this data to create business value for the company. We can also use this kind of data to support policy making. So both of this shows the added value of using the data from the food chain to create a value and finally lead to data economy in the food supply chain. So I think that's a unique contribution from our end to the general goal of data for food, the overall project. We proved that at the last stage of supply chain, data economy can be realized.
Thank you very much. My key takeaway is that you are highlighting the value of data even in the last part of the supply chain, which is also something very important we shouldn't forget.
Indeed, yeah.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank you also very much for participating in our podcast and joining us today and conducting a great discussion today with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you also.
And as for you, dear viewers and listeners, thank you very much for watching this episode. Don't forget to stay tuned for all the next episodes.